but she never left Oregon.
Did she go to school here?
Actually, for a while she did, yeah. So, and her grandbabies are here.
First of all, thank you so much for coming today. I talked my wonderful mom, Margaret Coe, into saying a few words about her work, and then I think she'd be open to some questions and comments. But anyway, it's been a joy for me to be around this work the last couple days, and take it away.
Well, I spent the good part of the day writing out my thoughts about this, but you'll be glad to hear that I edited it down to just a couple of points. And the first being, just that I wanted to talk about, is just the difference between, for me, the difference between doing the watercolors, the drawings, and doing the paintings. I'll say a couple of words about that. But the other thing I wanted to say is more about art itself. It's my feeling that that art is the way we come to relate to life. I think that I was thinking about it, and I was just thinking about how I know I came out. This is not philosophy. This is my personal experience. I remember needing to find a way to relate to the world. I was a little bit not so extroverted, just more introverted, but it seemed to me I needed, and I think that's a real need for everyone. For someone living in a small town in Kansas with not many activities other than they found out they could draw, that's perhaps a more driving need. But I really think it's fundamental to the human condition that people need to, as individuals, need to find a way to connect to the larger world. And I think they also need to find meaning in their lives, definitely. Yeah. And even if that meaning would be that they were committed to the idea that life is absurd and were passionately exploring this idea and writing about it, they are engaged. They found a way to engage. I think it's fundamental. And I know that everyone here supports art, but I just feel like as a culture, we don't totally get how people psychologically need to connect with the world through the arts. And the people who do that regularly, whether they're going to performances or doing art themselves, or so many ways that they're connecting with art, those people live with a sense of meaning. There's a deep, kind of quiet joy that pervades, that sort of replaced the angst that we had as children before we found a way to get some meaning. So I just felt the need to say that. So back to the show itself. Most of the work is the result of this trip that I took to England this past fall. The watercolors and drawings, that is my answer to how that sort of is the practice that is my answer to how people who are oriented towards the visual arts approach how to be in this life and how to be in this world. And that is by observation. Of course, that's what scientists do, that's what we all do, but that's our path to not being this isolated bundle of nerves and to actually processing what we see and having way. And with the drawings and paintings, that's what they are. I was traveling with a group of people. Two of the lovely women actually came from out of town to come to this. There they are. But we, this was not organized as an art tour, so I had my backpack on at all times with my drawing materials and my watercolors. Everything is small, and anytime there was an opportunity when they said, well, you have an hour and a half to shop, or you have an hour and a half to explore the inside of maybe you have an hour and a half at Stourhead to walk around, or something. And instead of exploring things extensively, I sort of found a great place to paint or draw, and that's what I did, and that was the joy of it. And this is the way artists relate to the world, I think, fundamentally. And there's a kind of a process that I believe is magical, whereby while you're invested in this, unconsciously, whatever it is, this sort of whole space that you're in when you're painting, not just what you're looking at, but your whole sense of the space, that gets absorbed into your unconscious, and that becomes something you can tap imaginatively. But that's not something that you think about when you're doing. That's just happening to you, and that's the other benefit of working from a direct observation out in the field. So those pieces are just about that. That's what the experience was. And then the other works, oil paintings, are painted in the studio, and you're really starting with nothing. And every possibility is out there. You can tap every possibility, all kinds of artists and your past, the way you worked on your last series, all these things are possible. And in my case, I did a lot of paintings over paintings and exploring this and that and the other, but ultimately, before the painting could be on the wall, I had to sort of come to a conclusion about what I was saying with this particular painting. And that is what we call resolving the painting, is that ultimately, this is to go back to the experience that I think human beings have of needing to relate to the world, is that we also need to give back our something. And for people in the arts, that means that you created something out of this that is just genuinely, authentically came from the struggles in the studio, but ultimately made a statement about something. And so that's basically what the works are about. And, anyway, any questions? That's all I had prepared.
Well, based on that beautiful philosophy, would you just be willing to talk about this painting?
Oh.
I love this one.
Okay. Well, this painting, what I did is there were certain places that I painted extensively, like you see the Oxford in the Rain series?
Yeah.
It was raining. I didn't get to do a single drawing there. I took a lot of photographs. But also, while I was there, I was just thinking, oh, there's all these huge buildings with authority, and we all know Oxford, it's just the educational capital. And yet there's all these little floaty umbrellas around. And that struck me as that's one of those memories that I'm talking about that you just sort of absorb and it turns into a little song or something. And so that, I worked on that imagery in 3 different paintings in this show. Now this one is another place. I did a watercolor. It's around the corner. It's Warwick. It's spelled W-A-R-W-I-C-K, but pronounced Warwick. And it's one of the great estates. And when I went there, I found a place. I went around the place a little bit, but then I saw this wonderful mound that had these, it had these towers on it and had all this planting. And I just sat down and did a watercolor of that mound. The whole time I had school children wandering in, and it was just a fun experience. So around the corner is the watercolor. I did that. I also got a photograph of a couple, and then some other people in the group sent me other photographs. But I ended up basing, I took a photograph too. So on this little one, this is the view I was doing the watercolor of, and I had a photograph that showed me part of the sort of castle that I was sitting in front of. And so someone took this photograph of me I think it was Susan.
That she's a little
Yeah, she took a photograph. She took a couple of photographs. So I was thinking about it, do I dare, do I not? But it ended up that I was able to use that, and it sort of anchored the composition where there's a great expanse of grass, and then there's this little figure, but it's also autobiographical. That's exactly where I was sitting, doing the watercolor. So and both of these paintings are from that mound. This one is from the back side of the mound, and my roommate on the trip, Cheryl, had wandered around and photographed the back side of it, and it was a little different from the front side. You could see the architectural forms, but everything else was different. And I just loved that image too. But this was one of the paintings that I painted on literally for months and months, because I got into the kind of thing that I traditionally have always enjoyed in painting, and that is playing one color against another color. Where can that go? How does that cause a separation? How does it cause, the different thrusts of the shapes against other thrusts of shapes? And I just worked on it a long time, greatly exaggerating the color. I'd say the color is fictional, but it was, and then the plants themselves are simplified in different ways. Like as I was doing this painting, I loved this thrust through here. It's kind of, and then it's echoed back. And once again, on this background color, it's kind of thrust in this direction. So you have all of these things pointing to the architectural forms, which of course I enjoyed. And they themselves are sentinels. They're just up there straight. All this stuff, I chose to make the plant forms into thrusts of energy for my poetic reasons. And of course, I also I like this sort of thing where it almost seems like a different time of today, where it gets all kind of moody and dark. So anyway,
just to balance all the colors.
Well, it happens. It's part of it. When you work on something for a long period of time, it's like you're telling it stories, it's telling you stories, and you have to sort it out and go with the stories.
And having been on the tour, we recognize everything. We walk around and we remember. We recognize.
Well, that's good. Despite how abstracted it might be, it still reads as true to you. I appreciate that.
It does very much.
It's not one pub in the whole collection.
I know it. And I did go to a pub, but this happens to be a collector of my figurative works, and he really likes the dancing and the blues series and all those. So anyway, and I appreciate that. I love it. It's just a great memory that different series connected with people in a vibrant way.
I just want to tell you your beautiful blouse matches your painting.
Oh, okay.
I saw that.
Yeah, it does. Choice of color. It's very intuitive sometimes. Any other questions?
Peggy?
Yes.
The one over here, the portal, I think we discussed it before, but it looks very paranormal. Like, did you get a lot of sense of a lot of energies when you went through?
Well, this painting, I think it is paranormal, in this particular painting. Now, the thing is, this painting I actually started before I took the trip. I was, and I just sort of was working with some colors, and I was sort of thinking about looking over the Willamette Bridge, the Willamette River from Portland. I take it, from really not too far from the hospital area, but anyway, and I just couldn't get anywhere with the painting, but it had some interesting stuff. When I got back, I had decided, one of those nice times when you just spontaneously start putting the color on, and I just, loved the sky, and then I got down here and I just made a big dark area. And then I started I had really liked Hampton's Court, as the entry of that. And so I had several photographs of that, and I decided to paint that as sort of an entry in it, but also to not let the buildings continue to be solid. They're only, this is even in kind of one point perspective. you definitely have a spatial experience of going into this, but really on either side, it just barely suggestively kind of fades. So I think that's why one of the reasons it feels paranormal. But this also leads you into this mysterious sky space.
Yes, the brightness.
Yeah. Yeah, the contrast between the dark, gloomy, sort of lost buildings.
Join them.
Any other thoughts? Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Appreciate it.
Joking.
it's on a support where it will stand as it is right now.
set up. Should be quick, but this piece was written by a Serbian composer. His name is Nebojša Zivkovic, and he's one of the most prolific percussion composers right now. He's written a lot of stuff, a lot of folk music actually. He writes a lot of marimba music, but he's also into tribal stuff. The piece that we're going to do for you now is very tribal sounding. In fact, I think that he writes it's supposed to be wildly ritualistic. And it's for 3 players. It's called Trio per Uno. And they all share a bass drum in the middle. And they'll all be playing the bass drum sometimes at the same time, sometimes at different times. And it really sounds like it's just one player playing the bass drum. And they all have the same instruments around the bass drum. They all have a couple of gongs that are muted and bongos. And sometimes they play, well, there's a little bit of improvisation towards the end, and I think that you'll agree it's very, very tribal. So this is Trio per Uno by Nebojša Zivkovic.
Yanis Xenakis, called Ray Ball B. Xenakis is an architect and a mathematician, as well as a composer, and he's known for incorporating complex mathematical formula into his music. In this piece, he uses a relatively simple sequence of numbers known as the Fibonacci sequence. The next number in the sequence is gained by adding the previous number. So the sequence goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, etc. And he uses this to structure the piece. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to turn the mic over to Beverly Sosi now, the director of the Jacobs Gallery, and she's going to talk about our next artist.
Thank you. So sadly, Rajin, well, not so sadly, I suppose, she's in Mexico right now. She's soaking up a lot of the things that inspire her work here, like the folk art and the colors and stuff. So I know her quite well, and I do know some of the processes she uses for her work. I will tell you, if you don't know who she is, she's a local artist. She's been here, went to U of O early years in art, but because of, and then as time went on, she had a family, had a business, worked too many hours, put art on the back burner. About 6 years ago, she retired and really became a full-time artist. She considers herself a mixed media artist, and she's having a lot of fun kind of exploring where it goes. Mixed media, just what's nice about it, it means you're always evolving and changing and trying new things. For a while, at that retirement time, she explored plein air painting, but I think it just wasn't doing it for her. Well, it wasn't because she says so, but because she started exploring these kinds of images. You see, everything that isn't this work in the gallery is her work, and it's, well, the title of the show, Unexpected Journey, and then both of their names, this is the India series for him, and for Rajin it was Out of My Mind, or I think, yeah, Out of My Mind. At first I thought that maybe meant it was driving her crazy, but what it meant is these are all works from her imagination, from her mind, and she's just trying to process what she thinks and believes in, and she's used a lot of human images as well as nature, birds, insects, and a variety of things like that, as you'll see. And hopefully you'll have a chance to come back and look. A lot of her work here is the paper clay process, which only briefly I'll tell you, if you haven't experienced it, it's like a paper mache product that dries, air dries. She uses acrylic paint on any of the pieces, and sometimes she'll utilize collage with it. There are pieces on the very back wall back there that are all collage, no paper clay, on panels or on canvases. And you know, if you had time to look around, she has little statements about it. She puts a lot of thought into this, and this is her way of getting who she is out of her mind. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you don't have time to look really, you know, closely at all of the work, you know, I have the pleasure in my position as artistic director to put artists together, hang the shows, and you know, I haven't ever been disappointed in what comes in, so I thank the artists wherever Mike is and Rajin. Thank you.
Pantomime by Clowny the Clown.
Hello, my name's Clowny the Clown. I'm going to do some clown things for you. Today we're doing pantomime. Back in New York when I was in clown school, our teacher had us each choose a clown subject to take home and research. And then we had to do a report for the rest of the class, which was pretty scary for me because it was the whole class. And it was my first time in front of a bunch of people. And, but I mean, she told us what to say. I mean, not what to say, but, you know, how to do an oral presentation. Introduction. Pantomime. A guy makes motions which the audience readily interprets. Pantomime. An audience rolls around in ecstatic pleasure because of the wordless antics of a guy. Pantomime. Everybody has a great time just being positive about their bodies. Pantomime is the art of Pantomime is the art of performing about pantomime. Pantomime. Everybody has a great time just being positive about their bodies. Pantomime is the art. Pantomime is the art. Pantomime is the art of performing. Pantomime. Everybody has a great time just being positive about their bodies. Pantomime. Pantomime is the art of pretending about stuff without saying stuff about the stuff that you're pretending about. Come enter with me into the fantastic world of the pantomime. Main body, paragraph 1. The body is the tool. The body is the tool, and the tool is the body. In his hands, this tool becomes the way to bring magical delight to the people through the use of his body, which is his tool. Paragraph 2. History of pantomime. Pantomime was invented when some deaf caveman tried to talk to each other. This is related to my own personal experience because I recently, yesterday, on the subway, saw 2 deaf people. And they were doing pantomime. I asked them about the history of pantomime, but I could not understand her because she spoke with an impediment. Paragraph 3. Now do some pantomime. Now demonstrate pantomime. Here are some everyday pantomime motions that I learned. Can anyone tell me what I am doing now? Can anyone tell me what I am doing now? That is correct. I am waving to my friend. Here is another one. Can anyone tell me what I am doing now? That is correct. I am caressing my face. Now you can see that the art of pantomime is the main art with his body as a tool. Conclusion. In conclusion, pantomime is the main art that you can do with his body as his tool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.